Welcome back to the Grim and Glamorous Podcast, a podcast about pop culture and the paranormal. I am one of your hosts, LBG. Today is Monday, September 5th, 2022. We hope you're having a fine Labor Day. So it's about 100 degrees, maybe a little bit hotter than that here in beautiful sunny Southern California. So it doesn't quite feel like it's the start of football season, but football season is upon us. So the NFL season starts this Thursday night with the defending champion Los Angeles Rams against the Buffalo Bills. And then Sunday on the 11th, we have a full slate of NFL games in week one. So it's football season, it's fall, it's supposed to be cool weather, so we're not quite there yet, but definitely excited that one of my favorite sports is starting up again. And so yesterday on Sunday, we had our fantasy football draft. So some friends of mine from high school and college, we do this every year where we have this big event online. I think one year we did it in person at somebody's house, but there's like 10 to 12 people that play in this league every year. And for the most part, it's been the same people. And maybe there's one or two that drop out and we rotate and get new people in. But we've been pretty consistent with it since I think about, I was looking back over the records online. We do it through ESPN's sports app. And I think we started in 2014. So this is going to be like year 8. So I was surprised to learn that we've done 8 seasons of this. But it's a lot of fun. There's, some trash talking and some betting, and it's fun. And if you've never done fantasy football or you don't really know too much about it, I wanted to do just a quick episode sort of explaining what we do, why it's fun, why it makes football season so exciting and so action-packed, even more so than like if you're just a normal football fan. I think adding this extra element of fantasy football where you get to play with your friends, it makes it that much more interesting and exciting. So much so that even one play or 1 yard, 1 point can really make a difference in your season and can mean the difference between making it to the playoffs and winning the championship and winning some money. So I just kind of wanted to do a short little, quick episode about this. So just to sort of explain, if you're not too familiar with how the teams work. So there's first a draft. So there's an NFL fantasy football draft that you do with your friends. So how we do it in our league is there's 12 teams, and we do whoever won last year and got second place, third place, and you reverse from there, goes last. So whoever did the worst last season gets the first pick. And so usually what that means is if you had, for some reason, didn't do well last year and your team kind of fell apart due to injuries or off the field stuff, which happens, there's an element of luck that's involved. So if for some reason you didn't do too well last year, you get the benefit of picking the better players towards the beginning of the draft. And so, and then it goes in reverse order, and then it's called the snake draft. So the first pick starts the draft, and then the 12th pick, the last person to draft, so last year's champion gets the 12th and the 13th pick. So they get back-to-back picks at the end of the draft. So they go 12, 13, and then it reverses from there. So that's why it's called a snake draft, because it's the beginning and end sort of doubles up. And how your team is structured is you fill your team with players, mostly offensive players. And then as they score points and score touchdowns and gain yardage, you get points as well. And at the end of each week, after all the NFL games are played in 1 week, so starting with the Thursday night game, the slated games on Sunday, and then there's usually 1 or 2 Monday night football games. That's considered like one NFL week. And once that's completed, you go head to head with somebody that's in your league and on a rotating schedule. And whoever has the most points wins that week. And then as you get closer to the end of the regular season, there's what's called the playoffs. So whoever has the most wins gets the number one seed, and then you advance through the end of the NFL regular season. And if you win in the playoffs, you win the championship. But then we award in our league first, second, and third place, and it depends on every year. But so some leagues don't bet money, but some people do. So since we've been playing in 2014, I think when we first started, it was like everybody puts in like $20 or something. So first place gets, I think it was just like $100 or something. Nothing too crazy. But as we've gone on in the years, we've added more to it. So this year we're doing like everybody puts in $100. So I haven't done the math, but it should be a nice little chunk of change for whoever gets first place. And I was looking through my record. So last year I got second place, and it came down to the last game, and I lost by 5 points, which is pretty close. So I got second place last year. And then I kind of forgot how I was doing before that. So I was looking through it. So 2021, I got second place. The year before that, I got third. The year prior, I got second place again. 2018, my team was just like riddled with injuries, and I got ninth. But then 2017 and 2016, I went back to back and won both, and was champion in both of those years. So this year, we had our draft. I feel good about this team. I'm hoping to get back to the championship and reclaim our league's trophy. So that's sort of how the draft works. And then at the end, sometimes people will trade players. That's not uncommon. The trades have to be approved by our league commissioner. So one of my friends who's been organizing it since the beginning, and he's been really great about it. He collects the money, he keeps track of the players and the trades, and makes sure that everybody has a fair running of the league. He does a really great job of that. His name is Peter, and really longtime friend that I've known since high school, and he does a really excellent job every year. And I know he wants to do an in-person draft for next year, so I'm really looking forward to how we do that. But for this year, I'm really excited about this team. I really like the players that I picked. And so how it works is it's mostly offensive players. So how we do it in our league is there's a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, a flex spot. So flex is you can add either a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end to sort of this extra spot on your team. And then there's 2 other positions. So there's a defense special teams spot. And how that works is you get to choose an entire team on defense and special teams. So this year I have the 49ers. Last year the best one was the Buffalo Bills. So how the scoring works for that is you're automatically awarded when the game starts 10 points. And then as the opposing team scores points or gains a lot of yards, points are deducted from that 10. And if you get a sack or an interception or a fumble, or the defense scores a touchdown, like on a pick six, or special teams return for touchdown, crazy stuff like that does happen, the defense will gain more points. So I was looking back at the championship game from last year. It was me versus my friend who got first, and their defense, the Bills' defense, scored 18 points, and so that was like just a crushing on that end, because the defense usually, it's a hard time to keep those 10 points because it's a scoring league. There's a lot of yards. It's a passing league, so it's uncommon for a defense to keep those full 10 points, but to score even more than that. And then my kicker didn't score any points, and he's been really great all year. So that was just sort of, but that's what it comes down to. Is that's what makes the game so exciting. Is you end up watching, if you can, like if you have Sunday off and you're not working and you can watch the games, like if you keep really good track of your team, which It's hard to do. That's the challenge of fantasy football is if you really want to be good at it and you want to win first, second, or third, you really have to be watching the players and see how they're doing, keep track of injuries, swap players in and out each week to make sure that you're putting forward your best team every week. Because sometimes people that don't do well in the league that I've noticed in our league, there's always like one or two people that don't really pay attention um, and you can tell because why are they playing an injured player who's not even scheduled to play this week and they're on the ear, like you can tell that they're not paying attention, so they end up losing. So if that happens, I think once or twice we've had to swap people out of our league at the end of the season because they're like, oh, I can't stay committed to it, and I can't keep track of it. So we've had people come in and out of the league. But that's the challenge of it is keeping track of the players every week. And but what makes it fun is if you go out with your friends and you watch football on Sundays or Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football, you really watch your players, and you have players for the most part from a bunch of different teams. So it's kind of funny because you have your favorite team. I've got a couple teams that I really like following every year that I'm a fan of. Sometimes you want those players on your team, but if that doesn't happen and you get, you want the best team, you're choosing the best players. So it may not be from a team that you like, and but you end up rooting for them to do well because you want to win that week. So it's kind of funny. It's a little, weird quirk that happens is you end up rooting for, a team that you don't like or a player that you don't like, and you're rooting for them to do well. Or if they're playing against your team that you like and you need them to score points, it's stuff like that happens. So that's what makes it fun. It makes all the games watchable and enjoyable. And so you keep track of your players, but then also you keep track of your opponent's players because you want to make sure that they're not doing well that week. So you end up watching most of the games on Sunday if you can, because each and every play can make a difference. Just to give you an example, it was really funny. Last year, I had one game where it was the Monday night game, and I had one player left. I think it was like a running back or something. And my opponent, they had their score, and I was like down by 7 or 8 points. And I'm like, oh, I have a shot. I've got my one player, and he's playing tonight on Monday night. And it was like the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. And it came down to the last play of the game. The running back, on the last play, they handed the ball off. He ran for a bunch of yards. He got the 1 point that I needed. I ended up winning by 1 point on the last play. And so that's how close it was. And that was the talk of the league that week, was that one game came down to the last play of the last game. And but that's how close it can be week to week. And then the year prior, it was really funny because against that same friend of mine, the year before, I beat him by 1 point because his quarterback on the last play took a knee and lost yardage enough so that he lost a point, and I ended up winning by 1 point against him. And so of course he's like, I can't believe it, and everybody's like, and then to beat him by 1 point again the following year was just, it's so funny. But that's happened several times week to week where you win by 1 point, or on one play can make a difference, and you end up, and then that can affect the seeding and the playoffs and all that. So it makes the games really exciting and really fun to watch, and you keep it competitive, and you get to trash talk a little bit against your friends. And we have a Discord chat, or there's a chat on the ESPN app that we don't really use, but once in a while somebody will use it. And you can propose trades, you can you can adjust your lineup, and see how your friends are doing, see how you're doing. There's like a scoreboard as the games are being played that you can pull up on ESPN, and it's like your league scoreboard, and it's up to date to the minute. So as each play comes in, it'll update the points, and it's usually done by so for example, if you're how the points work is touchdowns are 6 points. So if your quarterback throws a touchdown or runs for a touchdown, you get 6 points there. Same thing for a running back or wide receiver. If they run the ball and score, that's 6 points. If they catch the ball and score, that's 6 points. And then for running backs and wide receivers, they get 1 point for every 10 yards. So if your running back has, you know, 90 yards rushing on the day at the end of the game, that's 9 points. And then if they scored a touchdown, that's another 6 points. And quarterbacks, I believe it's every 10 yards is 1 point. It may be every 20 yards. But the cool thing about the ESPN scoring format is it'll show like a projected score. So when you're trying to set your lineup for each week, it'll give you like recommendations or suggestions. So it'll say, okay, this is a really easy matchup for your quarterback this week. He's projected to score 20 points this week. And usually it's pretty close to what happens. Sometimes it's off. You never know what happens, injuries, or it could be a tougher game than expected, but it kind of just gives you a guide to like, okay, this is kind of what to expect from your players this week. And then you have to keep track of when your players are off. So every player has sort of like an off week where the team doesn't play. So you kind of have to keep track of the schedule and see, okay, my quarterback doesn't play week 10. So that week I'm going to have a backup quarterback. So if I don't already have a second one on my roster, I have to find one. So there's like a list of free agents and players that are available that you can sign to your team. If you don't have an open roster spot, you have to drop somebody. So it's a really active game to play. So it's definitely not something where you can just like set it and forget it. It's that's sort of the fun thing about fantasy football is you have to keep track of so many things. And that can be the downside too, is like people get busy, they have work, they have school, they have family. But the league that I'm in, people are pretty good and pretty dedicated about wanting to do well. A lot of my friends are really competitive with themselves and with each other, and so that's what makes it fun. So like this season, for instance, I noticed that for the most part, everybody drafted really well. The past couple years, people make some weird plays or reaches where they pick a player because they like them early on, and they may have been, they could have been available several picks later, and so you're like, oh, why did they reach for this guy when there was a better player available? So clear, some people want their team full of players that they like with their favorite team, and they don't really care how they do in the league, or if they do well, it's just an added bonus because they just want to root for their one team. And that's okay. I mean, everybody plays the way that they want to play. That's what makes it fun, is you want to have players that you're rooting for, that you like. But for the most part, most people in our league, they want to win. They play to win because they want to win the money. They want to be competitive. So I try to do a combination of both. This year I went with like the best players available. I had players that I liked and the teams that I like. I like Cincinnati, I like Kansas City, I like LA, and so if those players are available and their best players are available, and for me to draft, I tried to go for them, but I didn't reach for them. I really tried to go this year with like who was the best player available and who would give me the best shot at winning. So my team this year, just to sort of run through quickly, quarterback, I have Lamar Jackson. My two starting running backs, Joe Mixon with Cincinnati, DeAndre Swift with Detroit. Two wide receivers, starting A.J. Brown with Philadelphia, T. Higgins with Cincinnati. Starting tight end, George Kittle with San Francisco. At the flex spot, I have the Washington running back, Antonio Gibson, defense 49ers, and the kicker from the Buffalo Bills, Tyler Bass. So overall, I was really pleased. Because I got second place last year, I got the 11th pick, so the second to last pick. So I wasn't really expecting like the top, game winning or league winning players. I thought maybe one or two of them, like the really big game changers. This year the number one pick was Jonathan Taylor. You had Christian McCaffrey. So those are players that do really well consistently. I wasn't expecting them to be available at 11, but I thought maybe some players I had last year that really were really great for me. I had Josh Allen last year. I had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, some young rookie wide receivers that people weren't high on, but I knew that they were going to be good. So I thought maybe one of them might fall to me, but both Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson were gone by the time I had my pick. So I went with Joe Mixon, and then on my second pick, DeAndre Swift. It's always good to have good running backs because they're really the heart and soul of fantasy football. They're consistent, they're reliable, at least the really top good running backs. They get a lot of usage, they get a lot of yards. It's, not uncommon for them to have a 100-yard gain and one or multiple touchdowns. So running backs typically have been a big deal in fantasy football. But as it's become more of a passing league, wide receivers have become important as well. So this year, we've done what's called a half PPR, points per reception. So all the years prior, we would do what was called standard. So where a wide receiver, you get 10 yards, you get a point plus whatever touchdowns you get. But now with PPR, points per reception, each reception that a receiver gets, you get a point. In half PPR, you get half a point. So it depends on how your league does it. Some people like standard, some people like full points per reception. We're kind of experimenting this year with the half PPR. A lot of my friends this year, I really didn't have an opinion about it, but they were saying that they're in multiple leagues and that it's a wide receiver, passing league now, that points per reception, it's becoming more popular and more common. So we voted for half PPR, half points per reception. So I'm guessing wide receivers are going to take a little bit more importance in this league this year, in the way that we're doing it. We'll see how it shakes out. I feel good about the receivers I have. I don't feel great, but I did get a lot of backup wide receivers that could have big years. So we'll see how that turns out. But last year, usually my strategy last year and in years prior has been to go for really big players. So players that are really explosive, that can score a touchdown on any play. My favorites have been like Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. So every year I like to have, I try to build the best team possible, but I like to have explosive players on really good teams that score a lot of points. Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, San Diego, LA, Oakland, players and teams that score a lot of points. I'd gravitate towards that. This year I went a little bit more balanced, and I wanted like a steady, reliable group of players that that consistently have a lot of points but still can score those big plays. So at quarterback, I kind of wanted Justin Herbert because he did so well last year. They have a lot of weapons in the LA Chargers, but somebody picked him up a little bit earlier, and then as I was drafting, I was happy with like where I was at. And then I thought, you know what, Lamar Jackson's just sitting there. I didn't think he was going to be available at the spot where I got him. And right behind me was the league champion, going to draft right after me. And so I thought, last year he had a really good quarterback. I had Josh Allen, who was really good, consistent, reliable, scored a lot of points. And I thought, the advantage of having a really good quarterback, um, one of the top ones, is worth it, I think. So I went with Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. So he does run a lot. He gets a lot of running yards, and so that leaves him more susceptible to injury. And so you have to sort of weigh the risk versus reward. But that's sort of the other factor of fantasy football is you could be having a great season, and then like one injury to your top running back or your receiver or your quarterback can totally change your plans. And so that's sort of what makes fantasy football such a dynamic thing as well, is you really have to stay on top of it and keep track of injuries. And you hope, with a little bit of luck, that your team, your starters stay healthy throughout the season. But it's rare for that to happen. Football, it's a physical game. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be games where a player sits out or is not 100% or has an off game. And so that's sort of what makes it challenging. Is it's a dynamic sport. It's a physical sport. It's an exciting game to watch. And so that's what makes fantasy football so challenging, is managing player movements and trades and injuries and things that happen off the field. There's been players that have like legal troubles or get suspended, and if you drafted them or if it happens during the season, that can totally derail your plans as well. And so having some really good backups, really good players on the bench is a good strategy as well. One thing that happens a lot is people will draft the backup to a starter. So like a reliable running back, maybe like a Dalvin Cook, but I think it was his first season or second season, he got injured, and so the backup became really important, and he got snatched up right away from the waiver wire. The players that are free agents that aren't on anybody's team, you can draft, you can pick them up by dropping a player and adding them to your team. And so that's another strategy that people use, is they'll players that are injury prone or have a history of medical or injury issues. I'm thinking of like Christian McCaffrey, who's really good when healthy, but has been injured several times over the past couple of years. And so, okay, if he gets injured, should I have his backup, or should I have him on my team now, or should I wait till something happens? So there's a lot that goes into the strategy of doing well in fantasy football. And of course, in addition to enjoying the sport, there's the little bonus of if you get first, second, or third, you get a little bit of prize money. But I think most people, when they play, at least in our league, everybody wants to win first place. Everybody wants to be league champion and have bragging rights for the year. And you get competitive, and you want to stay consistently at the top. Out of the past 6 seasons, I've gotten first, second, or third 5 out of those 6 years. There was one year where I got ninth place out of 12. But I won 2016, 2017, was second 2019, 2021, and third in 2020. So I've tried to be consistent and to do well as best I can. I am competitive with my friends, and so, but yeah, this year definitely want to try to get that first place again. So yeah, as NFL season is upon us and about to start this Thursday, I'm really glad it's football season is back. It's still a little bit too hot to be fall weather, a little bit hotter than my liking, but yeah, that was just a quick little episode about fantasy football, this tradition that me and my friends have that we've had since 2014. I didn't realize that this is going to be our 8th season, I believe. So we've been doing this consistently every year. Before NFL season, we'll have our draft. We'll go watch games at like a bar or restaurant. On Sundays, at least, a couple times. During the pandemic, obviously that didn't happen, but Last year I was able to meet up with my friends for that first game of the NFL season. So there's a lot of excitement. It's fun. It's an interesting game to play with friends, and if you haven't had the chance to do it, I definitely recommend. If you have a lot of friends or family members that are football fans, consider doing it. It's fun. A lot of people do have like workplace or school leagues that you can if you can get 10, 12 of your friends together, and you don't have to do it for money. We I think the first couple years we didn't even bet anything. I think it was just for fun, and then we added, $20. Everybody chips in like $20, $25, and then we've sort of steadily increased it year over year. So that way, at the end of the season, if you win first, second, or third, you get, if not your prize money back, you get a little bit of something extra. So it makes winning first place or second place that much sweeter when you do win. But yeah, a lot of people who don't know fantasy football or haven't played it before, they're like, is it really that fun? Is it really that interesting? And is it worth it? And it's definitely a lot of fun if you haven't played before and you have some friends or family that you want to get together. I definitely recommend giving it a shot. It's best to do the draft before the NFL season starts. So I think there was one year where for some reason we couldn't do the draft until after week 1. So that kind of made things a little bit interesting because you see how players played week 1, and it's like, did they meet expectations? And that can affect the draft. So that wasn't a great year because you definitely want to do the draft before the NFL season starts, because it can affect how things play out and how you select your team and the players for your team. But definitely recommend if you haven't played before. Give it a try. It makes the NFL season that much more interesting and exciting to watch. And if not, I'm just a football fan in general. I love the NFL. I love college football. I can watch any game at any time and enjoy it. Even if like the teams that I like aren't playing. Fantasy football sort of makes it more watchable, where every game can be exciting, every play can make a difference. So that was our quick fantasy football episode here. I hope you're having a great Labor Day weekend. And as the NFL season starts, if you're a football fan, I hope that you enjoy the slated games that are set to play on Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night. And hopefully this weather cools down a bit so we can have some fall football weather to make it seem more like football season. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great weekend, and thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.